In this war I had some Town Hall 12 and one Town Hall 11 base, and you may imagine which one is the Town Hall 11. So now let's look at the bases. This was my base and the 𝚋𝚊𝚜𝚎. This was also my base, which is actually Marinol account, and they tried to use an attack which didn't really work due to pathing. This was also my base, and they used an attack which I tested in friendly challenges, but this time they used a jump, and the queen had just enough health to actually snipe an Inferno Tower, so he managed to triple. This was also my base, and they also tried an attack which failed due to pathing. And this was my last Town Hall 12 base, and they tripled fresh with Super Witches, and honestly I didn't really test Super Witches because I thought that they would use, for example, Hybrid, but this time they got me. And this is my Town Hall 11 base, which defended. We talked about this base in the last two videos, so I won't show the base or the replays because the attacks are exactly what I planned for. And this is the only other Town Hall 11 standing, and they failed because they fell for the bait. So, OP base building. This is the first Town Hall 12 base. Try to pause the video for a second and imagine the base without traps, and see which attack I try to bait. I will now reveal the answer, and that answer is ZapDrag, as you may have imagined by looking at my SAMs. Because in this base I have zappable air defenses paired with Inferno Towers, which is huge value, and then I have the Eagle, which is really exposed, which is easy to sui, and the Town Hall is a good point to start the dragons. So ideally what I tried to bait was zap in this area, sui into the Eagle, and then send the mass dragons into the Town Hall and tomb as soon as the Town Hall was to go down. And as you can see, if you tomb into the Town Hall area, you would get all the traps that I have in this area. So I have all my SAMs, the Air Skellies and the Tesla Farm and the Tornado in the back end, which is a way to try to stop the ZapDrag, which in this case actually worked. So as for the base itself, what I started with was the core Inferno compartment. I made sure to have pathing going around that compartment, so that this Inferno would stay up and potentially ruin 𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘. Then I had two dead zones on the sides, so that it was really hard to go from one Inferno to the other with, for example, a Queen Charge with super wall breakers. I then expanded the Inferno compartments, having, for example, walls in this area, and then a wall piece, all, so that it was really hard to actually get a decent super wall breaker. And in fact, the only decent super wall breaker you can get is into this spot. I then tried to expand the Inferno compartments, making sure that I had some areas, which in this case are the Wizard Towers, that are outside the freeze range, so that you can't freeze the Wizard Tower and the Inferno together. And also, if you will break into the Wizard Tower, you can't get access to the Inferno Tower. I then expanded on this area, doing the Town Hall. Town Hall setup is honestly quite simple. It's the Town Hall, some defenses, the Clan Castle. There is a hole behind the Clan Castle to try to make this mod workable. I have a ground expo in case of a Sui or a Queen Charge, this wall piece to have troops walk around, and also I have a double trash layer ring, which means that 𝚑𝚘𝚛𝚎 or Sui may go around or is likely to start from another point, which in this case is the eagle. As for the defense placement, first I tried to have air defenses on one side of the base. Usually I prefer to have air defenses on the town hall side of the base and eagle and sometimes one inferno, and that's because I want to keep inferno towers and wizard towers together to really ruin any sort of attack like Lalo or hybrid due to the splash damage. And I also want to keep air defenses near the town hall because that's usually where they start their queen charge or they start the dragons. So in this case, first I didn't really like how I made the defenses because I had zappable air defenses paired with inferno towers, and honestly I didn't really have enough spots for them in the base. But then I realized that I could actually bait that strategy, and so I had this setup which I talked about before, where you could zap 2 zones, then Sui the eagle and send the dragons into the town hall. As for the pathing itself, as you can see, it's quite hard to go from one inferno tower to the other, because I have non-defensive structure which separate them. For example, the Barbarian King in this area. Make sure that the pathing goes around this way and then this way, and doesn't go into this way, which then leads to the inferno. The tornado and the Tesla farm will also screw up any kind of Lalo, and in this zone I have a similar setup, which is pathing that goes around the inferno, then into the inferno, and then goes off into the town hall or into the outside. And as you can see, in terms of hybrid, I didn't really place my traps near the town hall or the eagle, because what I tested in friendly challenges was a queen charge either into the town hall or into the eagle, because as you know, hybrid has to start on the town hall or you have to do a queen charge on the town hall. So in this case, if you look at the base, you have this really long inferno zone, and then these 2 zones which are kind of separated. So in this case I anticipated a queen charge on the town hall or on the eagle or on both, and then hybrid on the rest. Let's now look at the war attack. Okay, so as we baited, it was a drag attack, but this time it wasn't a ZapDrag. As you can see, she uses the Yeti to clear the funnel in this area, and this Yeti will also end up taking this air defense, which wasn't ideal. Then she uses the golem to tank for the Sui, and as you will see in a second, the Sui will get the eagle as well as the air defense, which is basically all the value I had in this area, but also all the value I accounted for in terms of a Sui, so it wasn't a really big deal. In the bottom zone, the king is funneling the 6 and 7 o'clock zone, and the queen will likely end up getting all the value. Actually, she won't get the eagle, but she has a stone slammer, so it isn't a big deal. And then mass dragons into the town hall, Tom, when the town hall is going to go down. And in this back end, she will have an 𝚑𝚘𝚛𝚎 clone, but as you can see, all my Sams are slowly picking up the dragons, so she won't be getting enough value with them, and in the end she will actually time fail because my Sams killed the dragons. Honestly, I didn't really expect some kind of 𝚑𝚘𝚛𝚎 clone attack, so I didn't consider at all the 𝚑𝚘𝚛𝚎 and this kind of stuff to actually prevent any 𝚑𝚘𝚛𝚎 attack, but as you can see, the base defended the way it was intended to. The Sui actually didn't get the eagle, so she had to invest the Stone Slammer. The Mass Dragons were into the Town Hall, which was intended. She used a heal and a clone, which I didn't account for, but in the end, she, for example, didn't get the Inferno in this zone, so I dealt more damage. So actually, in the end, the base worked kinda the way it was supposed to go, but I got a defense, which is all that matters in this case. This is the second war attack against this base, and the attack is kinda the same, but as you can see, it doesn't have 2 golems, but only 1, and he also has some zap quakes. The first phase of the attack is the same, so he has the Yeti to funnel and to also take this air defense with the Yeti mites, and then he funnels this side so that the queen goes in and gets the eagle. This way he doesn't have to use the Stone Slammer to actually get the eagle, but can use it elsewhere on the Town Hall to actually tank for the dragons. So now he's just letting his queen kill the CC and die. The king is funneling this side, and there is mass dragons into the Town Hall. Okay, so the ability pops now, and the Stone Slammer is actually coming for the Inferno Tower, and all my SAMs are stacked up in this area. But this time it seems that some of my SAMs are catching the loons, and actually the tornado is kinda useless because it catches only 2 loons, and a SAM actually kills a loon. So the variation was really subtle compared to the last attack, but in this case the base didn't defend. What I think that I will need to do is to prevent the Yeti from killing the air defense and maybe moving it so that the queen doesn't get it when she sues into the eagle, and also maybe move my air skelly, SAMs and the tornado so that they deal more damage to the dragons and stall them for more time. The first attack on this base was really close, and the second one was a triple. So the idea behind the drag attack isn't really bad, but I think that in this case the execution was maybe a little bit poor because I gave too much value for the Sui, which means that I can't really defend, and maybe that's actually the case on this attack.